Hello. So the question I want to talk about in this particular video is, do you feel shameful about your narcissistic relationship? And if you do, I can promise you, you're not alone. So I want to talk a little bit about that today, and I want to give you three quick tips just to help you to deal with that shame. So what do you do if you feel embarrassed or shameful about having been victimised and traumatised by a narcissist? So many of the women that I've worked with said that they felt too ashamed to tell anyone. And this was especially so when they were married or they were in a long-term relationship, and everyone thought that their partner was lovely. Because of course, as you will know if you're dealing with narcissists, the covert malignant type are very good at convincing everyone out there that the sun shines from every part of them. And as one of the ladies I talked to recently said, I think she said her granddaughter thinks that her narcissist hung the moon, which I thought was quite a good way of describing it. But the point is, they're very, very deceitful, and they can convince everyone that they are so lovely, which makes it really, really difficult for you to get anyone to believe you that they are in fact malignant, nasty, abusive people, okay? Now, what also happens with narcissists is that they isolate you from family and friends. They project all their dysfunction onto you and make everything your fault. And they completely undermine your sense of self-worth by constantly devaluing you. And ultimately, of course, they leave you in emotional shreds, discarding you like a piece of bloody trash. And when you've been discarded, that adds another layer of shame and of doubt and self-criticism on top of everything else. Because now you're feeling, I'm not even good enough now for him to stay in the relationship with me. So you're rejected, as if all that abuse wasn't bad enough in the first place. They now have the audacity to discard you. And you then see that as a reflection on yourself, because by this stage, your sense of self-worth and who you are and your own value about your own worth has just been blown to pieces. And very often at this point, you're not even thinking clearly anymore. You are just wallowing in this horrible pit of despair and self-doubt and self-recrimination, okay? And of course, you know, when this happens, underneath all of this, you do feel a deep longing to be happy and whole again. You feel that you've lost who you were. And I've had, again, so many women have said this to me. I've just lost who I was. I don't know who I am anymore. I don't know where the real me, who I used to be, has gone. And another common thing that I hear is that you wonder if you're ever going to be able to get over this. Are you ever going to be the same again? Okay? All of these feelings are very, very common in people who suffered narcissistic abuse. And unfortunately, that is just the tip of the narcissistic abuse iceberg. Okay, so all that being said, what can you do to start helping yourself to get out of this pit of despair that you're in? So I'm going to give you 3 quick tips that will help you right now. And tip number 1, and again I've said this many, many times, is first and foremost declare to yourself, this is not my fault. I am not to blame. Now the truth is, you have nothing to be ashamed about. You were targeted by a narcissist someone with narcissistic personality disorder, and that is a mental illness. Narcissists are not normal people. They don't think like the rest of us, and their ultimate goal in life is to obtain narcissistic supply. That means attention, adoration, and being the centre of the universe. Okay? Now, initially, in pretty much all narcissistic relationships, particularly the romantic kind, less so if it's a family relationship, you have a mother or a father or whoever, it's slightly different. But I'm focusing on the romantic aspect here. So initially it's all very, very rosy, and you're very happy to give them the attention they crave, because you're also feeling this great surge of love and all happy chemicals are dancing all over you. But it's never enough, and they always start devaluing you. And then when they see you hurting, crying, arguing, trying to reason with them, they don't care one iota for your feelings. Because all of that is still attention to them. They're getting what we call negative fuel from you. But as long as they are the centre of your world, good or bad, they'll take it. So, let that fact stand firmly in your mind. You were, or you are still, dealing with a mental case, but one who was or is incredibly cunning and a master manipulator. So you need to ground yourself in reality and know that you were ruthlessly targeted by a vicious, unconscionable human being who knew exactly how to find your vulnerabilities and exploit you for his or her own gain. Okay? So feeling shame and embarrassment is just heaping more unfair abuse onto yourself. And let's face it, you've had more than your fair share of that by now. So decide right now that you've had enough of this BS and that you're not going to punish yourself anymore. You could not have seen this coming. So pack up your embarrassment and shame and send it packing. Okay? So now tip number 2 is decide that you're going to start giving yourself love and support, because that's what you deserve, and most of all, it's what you need right now. Self-care is absolutely critical, and it's so often neglected when you're deeply mired in this traumatic relationship. I mean, very often you struggle just to get through each day, and you're just going through the motions on autopilot. And what happens when you stop caring for yourself is you've now got 2 people giving you a very hard time. Okay? So take a step back from it all and evaluate your self-care routine. And ask yourself, are you eating healthily? Are you getting any exercise? Are you drinking too much? Have you stopped doing activities or hobbies that you used to enjoy? Have you become isolated from all your family and friends? Or are you just living day to day in a state of heightened stress? So think about all this carefully and make a list now of 1 or 2 things you could start doing right now to start taking control again. Even something simple like book a massage for yourself, or have a mani-pedi, or go to the hair salon. Okay? Just something that you can do right now that puts the focus on you and your well-being. Okay? So look at your diet and your exercise pattern and see where you could start making some improvements. Now, I'm not suggesting that you go on some radical diet or that you sign up for the next marathon, but just take some small steps towards taking care of yourself. Start making regular time for yourself every single day and bringing the focus back to you, okay? Now, you can review this list weekly and just improve it gradually by adding more things that you can do for yourself. Now, research continually supports the importance of self-care in maintaining a healthy life balance. When you're dealing with a narcissist, your balance is totally out of whack. So it's even more important that you focus on some things where you can regain control. Now, tip number 3, really, really important, is to find support. Is there anyone in your family or a friend who would listen and be willing to believe what you've been through? You need someone who will be open to learning about narcissistic abuse so that they can begin to understand the trauma that you've had to put up with. People really can't understand it if they don't learn or unless they've been through it themselves. Now, I know that quite typically narcissists isolate you from families and friends and you're left stranded. In that case, it's really important to find a support group to connect with other women or people who definitely do understand because they have been through it or they're going through it. Now, this can be an absolute lifeline for you, and I've had so many women in my group say this. Women who've become so isolated that they just had nowhere else to turn, basically because their narc had either convinced everyone so well that he was, you know, the bee's knees and God's gift to the world, or because he'd smeared them with the smear campaign to everyone they knew. And they felt isolated, alienated. In this case, you know, you really can start feeling that the whole world is against you. But I really want you to hear me when I say this today. It's not. There are people who want to support you. And that's when you most need to reach out and know that you're not alone and that you can heal and that you most certainly are worth it, okay? Now, again, as I always say, these tips that I share with you in these lives are not the be-all and end-all of recovering because it's an enormously complex area, but they will help. So do try them. And my aim for all these short videos I make is to get you thinking of ways that you can start taking control again, okay? Because healing has got to start somewhere, and healing starts with you taking control, okay? So I'm Maria McMahon, and thank you very much for watching, and I will see you again soon. Thank you, and bye for now.